and you say Sci City and around the world, I am the Kid Rock Allen. He is Young Flizzle. And today on Chicago's ILLectuals podcast, we have a special treat, a very special treat. Dr. Zoe Franklin.
Hey.
Greetings, greetings.
Yes.
All positive salutations.
How are you, ma'am?
I am well. I'm thankful to be here. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I have a milestone coming next month. We might talk about that a little bit later on, but I'm really happy to be here and, really to be in you guys' presence, Kid Rock. So, what I mean? Like, I'm just really happy, just really,
yes.
I'm honored and thankful, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. So we feel like this is a highlight for us as well. We were looking forward to having you. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into it.
All right.
Let the world know. Who is Dr. Zoe Franklin?
When I was an undergrad, trying to be a little radical and all like that, my professor had a few of us come in and talk to, some of the younger students coming in on some of the first years, and the question was, who are you? And, I stand at the podium and I lean forward. I said, I am that I am, right? But I am, I am, a spirit encapsulated in this human flesh. I am the number one child of my mother, firstborn. I am the third born of my father. That's a whole nother thing. If you want to get into that later, we can. Raised in poverty, single parent household. A very traumatic experience. Always praying. Jesus, if you just
many of us are, yes.
always praying. Growing up as a child, very, very difficult, very honestly with you. Again, very traumatic. But although I didn't read well because, I wasn't fortunate to have somebody to sit down with me and help me to learn to read, I was still trying to read. And so I was reading like these little novels where, if you see my background back there, what's that? Palm trees, that's the ocean. And that, you know what I mean? Hey, that's the beach. And so I remember reading a book about this girl named Zoe on the beach. I was like, oh my God, I gotta get to the beach. If I could just get to the Atlantic and get to the Pacific, I'd be happy, right? Growing up, the first of my mother's children, and I had a child very early on by a guy who was at the time considered middle class, very light skinned, green eyes, eyes change colors, with emotion, and all those things. So I have, I get pregnant very young. And, he said, you're not pregnant, by me. So, all of that, it was just all of that. And then, here comes my mom saying, okay, you got to go to college, to redeem yourself from having this baby so young out of wedlock. So of course, I go to college and I flunk out because, like I said, I didn't read well, right? I didn't compute well. So there was no, discipline where you sit down and do what you need to do regardless of whatever else is going on, right? So it wasn't until I, began to teach my oldest son how to read and all of these things that I was able to then help myself to learn, how to read better and and those types of things, right? And I basically started my quest of learning to read, because I was like, oh my God, there's some really good information, in these books, right? And so in learning to read, I was able to begin to increase my vocabulary and those types of things. As a matter of fact, I just said to these guys, Armel and Brother Eric and some other guys yesterday, that basically the English language is the only language that is kind of stratified, right, with your educational level, right? Like everybody who speaks Spanish knows educación, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In other language have some variants of that word, and everybody, no matter where they are situated in that society, understands that word. But when you come to the English language, particularly in the American context, right, you have something called regular words, and then you have big words, right? And so the big words, right? The big words, quote unquote, separate those who are quote unquote educated from those who are not. And it can cause some friction.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I was able, to do that. And then, in raising my eldest son, giving him the opportunity to be introduced to words that, even now, with him not being a college educated young man, he will read any book, but he's going to partner it with a dictionary. And I appreciate that. And so he's able to operate in any environment, right? Not because he's educated, but because he was exposed to those types of things, right? So anyway, so I come, here I come. So I'm getting to the point because I didn't think I was going to be talking a lot. And so, so when I talk to you about trauma, right, I was basically born into an environment that was very violent. If it wasn't physically violent, right, it was emotionally violent, right? It was, I don't like to say this one, it was sexually violent, right? And so what do I do then, right? My oldest son's father was very abusive. Very abusive. We'd be riding in the car. I look this way, happens to be a guy driving down the street. What you looking at him for? Right? You know what I mean? So, God is good in that God removed me from that, because I could have stayed in that violence. And please understand me, my wonderful brothers. I'm not talking bad about brothers. I'm talking about my experience.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, the ancestors, the gods extracted me from that, because of course, he says, baby's not mine. I don't want to have anything to do with you. But of course he comes back around again. I love you, da, 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 da. And the ancestors said, got to go. Right. And so I started working on myself. Okay. So then I meet another guy that I eventually marry, right? And, you learn a lot of stuff hindsight. He was extremely abusive, right? And to me, when I look back, he was very strategic, right? Because he made more money than I did. By this time, I'm in the military, spent almost 10 years in the military for the, I don't know if it was on my resume or anything. And so I was in the military, and he decided that he didn't want to travel further with me. He had traveled to Florida with me, but he did not want to go to Sicily. Okay. And so he had said that what we would do is put all of my money that I make in the bank, and we would live off of his money. I'm thinking, oh, this is great, right? But then when it got time to go, he didn't want to go through all the paperwork and all that. And so he decided, well, let me just kill her. I can laugh now, right? Because the guy was 6'2", 170 pounds. I came home from training one Saturday. I walked in the door. I'm 5'1". He grabs me right here and picks me up off the floor. And I'm praying and trying to just, anyway, something happened. I don't know. The ancestors are always stepping in for your sister. So I run upstairs, lock the bathroom door, jump out of the bathroom door out of bathroom window from the second floor, run to the neighbor. And, and to keep this kind of short, I'll just tell you this. So he eventually came over to the neighbor's house. Meanwhile, I'm trying to tell the neighbor, look, this man is trying to kill me, but the neighbor's trying to say, he's too sweet. He would never do that. Right? So she sees him coming. Then she calls the police, right? Because she's like, oh my God, I've never seen so. Anyway, so I go to Sicily with my oldest son, and he took the money out of the bank. Remember I was telling you about the money. Yes. So he took the money out of the bank, all of that money out of the bank. And then he was the type to like to dress. Y'all don't know any men that still like to dress their women. But back then, he liked to dress me. So that would mean that whether I was with him or not, if he saw an outfit, he would just purchase it for me. And, oh, I just, knew that you would look good in this. So I was sharp, honey. Okay. Hey, we walk into the party. Okay. Because I was dressed to the nines.
Yes.
All right. So when he gets ready to leave, like I said, he takes the money and he takes all of the clothes.
Oh, wow.
And the only thing he basically leaves is everything that belonged to my son. You're right. So thankfully, right. So that meant that I had to leave Jacksonville, Florida, and go to Sigonella, Sicily, the island, a little boot off of Italy. Making at that time $172 a month because they had given me an advance so that I could take care of everything that I needed to do. But I'm still working on myself. I decide there I'm going to go to therapy, which is basically unknown to even to this day to most Black people. Most Black, it's just something, we probably have to deal with that on another level. But, we think that no matter what we've gone through, we're going to be all right. And it's a good thing. But I was watching DMX did a clip this morning, and he basically said, he was talking about being a Black man, but he said basically what Black men do is, no matter what the experience is, they say it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And kind of push it down in there. He said, but at some point it's going to come out. You know what I mean? And it may not come out, in a positive way, but it's going to come out. And so, I wanted to do better by my child. I felt like my child deserved better. And I hope that I, don't go too far here. But in that therapy, the therapist asked me, what's good about you? And I said, well, the only thing that's good about me is my child. My child, he's a good person, right? And the therapist said, yes, but why do you think that your child is a good person? And I said, I don't know. And he said, but your child basically is like a computer, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So if no garbage is being put into your child, right, who's represented by this computer, right, and goodness is coming out of this child, then the goodness must be coming from you.
Let's give that a hand. Yes. So let me just say, thank you so much for revealing.
Okay, because I know I'm talking too much. I know I have a tendency.
You're fine. You're fine. You're free to express yourself. But there were a few points there.
Okay.
And just let me begin by saying, not only are you a good person, you are a great person.
Oh, thank you, Kid Rod. I see you affirming me.
Too many people. But I heard you say that your son would read a plethora of books,
Yes.
right? And he would couple that with the dictionary
Yes.
to confirm what he was reading, to get
Yes.
understanding, right?
Yes.
And I couldn't help but think about two people,
Who? Malcolm X and who?
Nas,
Aha. Okay.
right? Malcolm
Okay.
X and Nas. And I
Okay.
met your son. Uh,
Okay.
Extremely bright young man, very respectful, and I think your therapist was right. But let's move on to the second question because we have a bit of information that we're trying to extract from you here.
Okay.
So,
Hey, look, and feel free to stop me. I appreciate the way you said. Let me clap for get next point, girl. Okay.
so Dr. Frank, what are your values?
Oh my God. You know, let me say it like this. I value the love of family.
Okay.
And I value respect.
Okay.
Right? And I value the fact that in spite of it all, you know, I'm still here and we're all still here. And I value the fact that we get an opportunity to do better today.
So you know, and I about that as well. So many of us, especially from the Black experience,
Mm-hmm.
from the time we're born, we're under this duress, and as we move through life, we have these traumatic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And for people like you and I, we get to a point where we realize that those ugly experiences were mere phases of our development, right? They were phases of our development, and without those experiences, as traumatic as they may have been, we had ancestors looking over us. You know, we had God or whoever you want to call them looking over us.
Right.
We were able to make it through to become the examples that we are today. So that's why we appreciate you so much, because you taught me some of those things, right?
Oh, wow.
And so we're going to move on to the next question, which is, oh, you're going to like this one. What are some of your reflections in regards to your travels abroad?
Oh my good. Well, I mean, oh crap. You know, first of all, I love travel. Flizzo, I love travel.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, you know, what would you be doing? I said, travel. I find a way just to work so I could travel, because there's something that is liberating about travel. You know, yeah, especially, you know, even if you're traveling from, you know, from Chicago to the West or Chicago, anyway, you know, just travel is really beautiful. But, you know, I don't want to talk too much because I can do that. You know, let me tell you, when I went to Sicily, I got the opportunity to then travel to, you know, the mainland, which is Italy, right? Got to go to Palermo, went to the Vatican. So, and I'll try to be brief. I went to the Vatican twice. The second time I went to the Vatican, it was really strange, right? Because I saw this door that was open, right? And so I walk in the door and go down the steps and go around. And there were like these prison bars, right? You know, the bars that they, you know, in my head, that's what they have, right? These prison bars. And behind the prison bars, there was this heavily melanated Madonna and Child that I saw with these eyes right here. And I was like, oh, thank you. I know it was just for me. You know what I mean? So that type of thing. So anyway, you know, I've traveled to, you know, several countries, you know, in Europe. Oh, okay. Luxembourg, Germany, actually lived in Germany for a year. Nice, France. Let's see, where else have I been? Well, definitely been to Mexico. yeah, several of the, I just can't think of what they are right now, but several more of the European countries, as it were. Iceland, I've been to Iceland. Um, and I actually in 2007, which all of that's really great, fine and wonderful. But 2007, I went to Ghana,
Okay.
right? And I went with Dr. Malefe Kete Asante, who is, amazing to me. I bowed to him. Um, and there we all participated in a naming ceremony
Hold,
where,
hold
huh?
that. Hold that. I don't want you to reveal that yet because that's
Oh,
my question. That's going to be
okay.
one of my questions.
Okay. But so really enjoyed that. But listen, on that trip, I got to meet Dr. Julius Garvey.
Oh, wow.
Marcus Garvey's baby son, right?
Oh.
Right? And I'm sure he's retired by now, but he was like one of the top vascular surgeons in the world, right? Which meant that he operated what? On the veins. I said, only Marcus Garvey's son would be able to do that, right? I was also on that trip in the presence of Kwame Nkrumah's youngest son. I can't remember what his name was, but I was in the presence of him, right? And actually went to the mausoleum of W.E.B. Du Bois and his wife. Went to Kwame Nkrumah's mausoleum as well. Just very, very it was beautiful. It was really a very positive experience for me. I loved it. I had always wanted to go to, the mother continent, because my thing was there was an ancestor of mine who didn't want to come. Right? And what that felt like. And I said, I want to be able to return for that ancestor who knew what it was like before the colonials came.
Yes.
Right?
So did you get a chance to visit the Elmina slave castle?
I did. Oh my God. Oh, and I'm getting chills already just dealing with that. Elmina and Cape Coast, but Elmina, our guide actually put us in the room that was allocated for, those rebellious Africans, right? And literally in this room where they had to, for tourism's sake, they had to actually put a door with ventilation on, right? But this was a room that literally when our ancestors were put in there was no ventilation on that door. There was only ventilation about 15 or 20 feet up with the, kind of a 12 square cut, up that high, right? Because they would literally kind of pack our ancestors in there in hopes that, the suckers would die, but yeah, and so what happened when they put us in that room and closed that door, although there was ventilation on that door, there was a woman next to me who just basically, she just lost it. She could no longer stand up straight, and she was literally wailing. And I was just about close to that myself, but I felt like I had to hold myself together so that I could console her.
Yes.
And even now thinking about it, it does something to me because, the spirit of our ancestors is still there.
Yes.
They're still there, and our ancestors are still in us. That's why we can relate, to that experience, although it happened, so long ago. But it was, very, very powerful, but I also got the, and let me go stay here too just for a second, because another thing that really struck me was above the quote unquote dungeons, because, they still want to call the place a darn castle, right? But above the dungeon, there was these the stairs leading up, and they had cut a hole, right, where whoever was living up there, whether the captain or the priest or whoever, could say, go and clean up, you know, Efua, go and clean her up because I'm going to have her tonight, right? You know, right over.
That's happened. Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? Just you know, and then just to see how, you know, if you were a woman and rebellious, they might just tie you to a steel ball and just have you standing out there in 100-degree weather, right, with hardly any humidity, you know, until they decide, you know, that either you were going to be freed or you were going to die or whatever.
So two things. I love when we're having discussions about our history and our ancestry, and the phrase comes up, those rebellious Africans. Okay, I love it because in modern society, we really only acknowledge Nat Turner, right?
Right.
We really only acknowledge Nat Turner, but
right.
on the continent of Africa, it is important to know that there were those of us who rebelled.
I mean, all the time, and
Okay.
you know, and that you're so right. That is a part of our history that is kind of systematically left out, right? Mm-hmm. Because it would be, it's kind of important that we see ourselves kind of docile, right? Yes. Because, you know, even today, it's like, you know, don't rebel. No, bring the preach over here, you know. But yeah, people fought, right from the beginning, and even more so when they really found out what was going on, right? Because our ancestors did not know that there were people that could be so, you know, heinous in their crimes. They didn't know that. They didn't have the same type of enslavement that the Europeans would exact on our ancestors, right?
Yeah, that's what's up.
Right, you know, so when our ancestors, you know, would go to war with another village, right, you might have become a captive, you know, a prisoner of war, but you still could conceivably become royalty in that village, right? The only caveat is that you ain't going back home no more, you know. You know what I mean? But it wasn't that level of dehumanization, right, you know, that was perpetuated by the Europeans on our ancestors, right? Because it took a while to find out what type of
another important point that I think is really pertinent to recognize and to acknowledge is on the yard, the dungeon that they call the castle, right? On the yard, while they had Africans waiting for their captors to come back and put them on the ships.
Right.
This was the beginning of the separation of the family, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I teach a policy class.
Okay.
And in that class, we talk about welfare reform.
Okay.
Reform of 1961.
Okay.
Right. So me being a Black man, on any platform that I have, I just know that it's my duty to educate everyone.
Yes.
Many different cultures in my class.
Yeah.
So I have to find creative strategies to be able to educate kind of outside, but within the confines of the curriculum.
Yes. You have to be a strategist.
I was able to make the comparison of the welfare reform of 1961, where right after the war, Black men could find no work, and thus their wives had to go on public assistance contingent on the fact that there was no man in the house.
Exactly.
I'm teaching future social work students.
Right.
Cultures, right? And it's always important to note that the social worker was assigned with going into the house and investigating to see whether or not there were any signs of a man.
Yeah.
Right. And I have them to watch the movie Claudine.
Claudine, great example.
So but then we related back to the yard of the Elmina slave castle, right? Where the captors would take the woman away from her family, put her in the middle of the yard, and rape her in front of her family and everybody else to set the example that he can't help you.
Right.
right? So
Right.
1961 welfare reform was not the beginning of the breaking up of
That's right. That's right.
right? And so I just feel like when we have these platforms, we have to find creative and strategic, kind of non-threatening ways to implement the information, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you know what, and you know what they used to say that I'm afraid of what they say about it now, but they used to say that the truth will set you free. You know what I mean? You can say it cute, but you know, but now they say, you tell the truth, somebody can hurt you. The truth is inappropriate. Right. But yeah, I think that's why, learning about the Adinkra symbols in general, but in particular, those two that represent Sankofa, right? This process of actually doing what? Returning to the past, right? To uncover, right? And to recover, that great information, good, bad, and indifferent, that we can do what? Bring forward, right? So we can examine it, right? We can look at the good and say, yes, great foundation, let's build on it. And look at the bad and say, 49% of this ain't so bad, but the other 51, let's get rid of that and see what we can work with on that 49, right? And then the bad, we might just have to go back and discard that. You see what I'm saying? But I think that Sankofa is so important. And no matter what class I teach, I talk about Sankofa because it's so important, right? That we understand that even, when I'm talking about, the African-American experience, right? Many African-Americans have no idea of their experience. They just say, I'm Black, I know it, and hey, that's all I need to know, until they really start learning. And so, even if you go back to yesterday, right? That's Sankofa. If you go back to 94, that's Sankofa, right? You understand, you're going back, right? And so, and you have to show, like you're doing in your class, that it is all connected, because we're taught too frequently that, that was then, this is now, there is no connecting of the dots, right? And that's the worst fallacy ever, right? Absolutely. Everything is connected.
So I want to ask you this. I want to ask you a question. So it is an honor for anybody, especially somebody from America, to be awarded a name on the continent of Africa. But you were awarded 2 names from 2 different countries, as I understand it?
Yeah, if I may. Yeah, when I went to Ghana, because I've been to Ghana twice, but the second time that's a whole nother story. I did not receive a name. Now, I received a name at the naming ceremony when we went with Dr. Asante, right? And Efua was my name, E-F-U-A, Efua. And I probably put the emphasis too much on that U. But born on Friday, okay? Born on Friday. But no, I have to go back one, because in 2004, when I was at Berkeley working on my master's, there was a woman from Osogbo, Nigeria. They have a huge, like a Black art school there, where they do all different types of art. And she was visiting Berkeley, and very interestingly, I was the only Black person in this room. But Berkeley still today has very few Black folks on the campus. That's a whole nother conversation. But and so she gave everybody in that room a name. And the first traditional name that I received, this whole, I have so many stories. But the first traditional name I received was Ayoka, right? A-Y-O-K-A, A-Y-O-K-A, Ayoka, right? And it means joyful all the time. You don't see that in me, do you? I'm just saying. But,
for the most part, yeah.
So yeah, I was like, oh my God, and so joyful all the time. And so you'll see, you know, variances of the name. And when you see AYO, it just means joy, right? In the Yoruba language, because Ayoka is a name within the Yoruba language, right? So Ayoka was my first name that was given to me, you know. And then the second name I received when I was in Ghana, Efua. And then I went through an initiation almost 10 years ago now. And I was given another name, Amolara, 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 means born at the right time.
Mm.
Okay. You know, not to go too far, but Amolara was given to me because of the way that I came into the planet. My mother and my father were cheating on his wife. And so, you know, they give birth to me. So, you know, I was supposed to be here. And so, you know, so Amolara, born at the right time, right? There were
What
no
country
mistakes.
did that one come from?
You know, I really don't know, but I'm going to say it may have even been Nigeria as well.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, no mistakes. You know, there were no mistakes. There were no mistakes with you, the way that you came onto the planet, you know, because, you know, very, very real. I wouldn't be who I am had not I come that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then, I have a significant other. I've been in this really long distance relationship for a really long time, like 12 years, right? He uses the last name Chimurenga, and I think it means warrior or something like that. It may be Zulu, or you might help me with that one. But you know, I like anything to do with war. I like. But anyway, so
the true radical in you, right?
yeah, because you know, okay,
yes.
yeah.
Let's share with the world.
Yeah.
Because there's so much content, we could go on forever, right? But
right, but you don't want to do that because, you know, okay.
We want to share with the world how you met me and later young Flizzy or Floyd. I want to share with the world how we met.
Now, very honestly, I'm working. I take ginkgo biloba nightly, and my
I know where we're going. I got you.
So now I remember when I met Flizzo because that was at your graduation party.
Yes.
Right?
My grad school graduation.
Okay,
Yes.
but Rodney, I swear to you, I do not remember. I feel like Rodney, and like I told my significant other, I was like, you know, Rodney called me blah, 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 and he's like, Rodney. I was like, look, I've known him longer than I've known you, and then I went like, I don't think so, but anyway, it sounds good. So anyway, so Rodney, I feel like I've known you all of my life, and it's not to justify my bad memory, but I swear to you, I feel that way. I feel like, and whenever I met you, it was like us meeting again. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
You know, and you know, and I have this, like we're the three of us are like kindred spirits, right? Like we've been on this journey or another one together before. Right? Whether we were dust out in the universe or whatever the heck it was, we might have been on the plantation, or you see what I'm saying, hanging out in the village, you know, doing the latest dance, because I think I can still kind of break one. But anyway, so anyway, so help me with that, Rodney. But go ahead.
So I think maybe the next question might help you with it. Perfect segue. What is a community forum and why is it important?
Oh boy. Well, a community forum is necessary for the people to be able to speak their truth with freedom. Right? And you said, what is it and what else?
And well, you answered it.
Okay.
It's a community forum and why is it important?
Yeah, it's important. You know what? Because I'm looking from my today's eyes, and I'm saying it's important because really, as melanated people, we really don't get the opportunity to speak our truth. We're always speaking so that other people won't become offended by our truth, right?
We have to use non-threatening language. We have to use non-threatening language, yes. And strategize in our classrooms when we have this skin tone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, go ahead, Cuz.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know that you said that you were thinking in terms of recent community forums, right?
But, well, from this mind, you know, from today's mind, from this moment, right?
Why was it important? Why were community forums important during the Great Migration?
Well, because, you know, that's how we got information passed around, right? That's how we understood, you know, are there jobs available up there, right? How are they treating us up there, right? Or did they lynch, you know, Ray yesterday, right? Or, you know, how can we pool our money, you know, to do this, that, and the other, to work in our own best interest, right? All of these things, I think, were necessary.
So right? you can go to the community forum in the 30s and 40s, and you could just be coming from Alabama or Mississippi, and they would tell you small things that could save your life, like stay in Bridgeport.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's key. You know,
right. and when I was using the term, we have to use non-threatening language. I wasn't right now. You can be now. I'm talking about in society. So the forum is important because it affords us freedom of expression.
Right.
But we're in our professional careers and moving along in society, and you know, many of us, you know, we're charged with the task of not, as you said, offending other people. And why the thought came to my mind of, you know, we're taught to use non-threatening language.
Right, and you know what? And let me just add this. You know, and sometimes we have to even use that same non-threatening language within our families. Right, because the other groups are not the only people who are in denial or, you know, so staunch in their privilege that you know they can't hear the truth. They're not the only ones. You know. Yeah.
But that's good stuff. I think, you know what, when you were speaking about the community forum, first of all, like everything up to now, I got like thousands of questions. So we definitely, probably more likely than not, gonna want to bring you back to this conversation. But I will say this, the relationship between the migration and even like understanding the depth of green books, right? Like these information, of where you can go on the highway that's safe, learning about things like sundown towns,
right?
Where you need to be. You know, this has been like a common theme for us, you know, in this country, like as far as how to navigate it physically, spiritually, emotionally. You know, you have to congregate and kind of like be able to kind of like gather all this information, keep it relevant, and then these outreach strategies to, you know, put it amongst the people that need it the most. So I like to hear about like that whole pathway, like from the migration, you know, because my people came down there too as sharecroppers, came up north and all that they had to learn. And they also spoke about like touching down on the south side, like this Washington Park, like formed this great spot where it was like an information network. You knew which nannies were favorable to your schedule. You knew like which, like this, that, and everything to kind of like acclimate you to your new environment.
Yeah, and you know, it's really interesting because during that period, as our people were migrating, they were actually called sometimes refugees. And remember, there was a problem with us being called refugees when our people were having to move out of New Orleans, right? But literally in the newspapers of that time, they would literally, you know, use that term. And you know what, when you think about it, they were actually moving from, you know, one world to another, right? Because the weather was different, right? You know, everything was different. And, you know, racism that was practiced, right, was just a little different, right? Because in the South, it was in your face. You knew everybody that was you know, either member of the Klan or the White Carnation or the Knights of this, that, or the other, right? But then you get here, then it becomes Bridgeport, right? Or it becomes, you know, you can't move past what, you know, 35th Street or whatever it was, right? It's a different type of thing. It's a different type of environment, and it is a different way of moving in the world, right? So our people had a lot to learn during that period, and even though I like to say, and still, you know, we rise, right? Because we get some of, especially here in Chicago, as a result of the Great Migration, you get some of the best of everything that Black people have given to the world here, you know, in Chicago, right? You know, what, the first African-American, and I'm just dealing with products of the Great Migration. You get the first African-American female astronaut, right? You get your first senators, right? Oscar DePriest and what was the other guy's, Marshall? I can't remember his first name, but right, you get all of this. You get you know, some of the best jazz artists, right? Including people like Oscar Brown Jr. Right, I mean, you get, right, you know, Ida B. Wells Barnett lived right here, doggone it. You see what I'm saying? Carter G. Woodson, what? He creates Negro history where? Right here, doggone it, in Chicago, right? As a result of, you know, our people, you know, moving, you know, as a result of, you know, so many reasons for, you know, the Great Migration, right?
So it was the forum. It was the forum where we met.
Okay.
Where you and the elders, many of whom have now passed away, began to educate me culturally.
Okay.
To raise me and educate me culturally. So that's where we met, and you've meant the world to me since then.
Thank you. And you did wonderful work with, you did the wonderful work with your cousin and all those young people.
Yes, the youth program. You sat on my board of directors, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and I. Yeah.
Held me accountable. So
okay.
Next question.
Sure.
What do our young Black brothers and sisters need to know about the world and their place in it? Academically, culturally, what do they need to know?
I'm gonna do an Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Farrakhan, Khalid Muhammad. They need knowledge of themselves because they need to know who they are. Because see, we are people who have been taught, learn about others, learn about others, learn about others. When everybody else is taught, know thyself. Well, it was our ancestors who first said that, right? They said that Imhotep, right? Who, you know, is basically, you know, the first multi-genius in recorded history. There were others before him. He said, know thyself. So you have to know yourself so that you can respect yourself. And if you do that, then you can offer that to other people, right? Self-negation does not benefit anybody, right? Because self-negation, you go and you self-negate and you go and hang out with all your quote unquote multicultural friends, which I used to do, right? And you don't talk anything about yourself. Everything is about all those other groups. And then there's going to come a time.
Oh, go ahead.
There's going to come a time when you have to talk about you. And that is where they used to say the rubber meets the road, because When you tell your truth and your truth is not somebody else's truth, they're going to let you know if you can still be friends or not. Right? That type of self-negation does not benefit anybody, right? Everybody has to be able to stand in their own truth, right? And if you can't accept my truth, then, you know, bye. What it was the young people say, baby, bye. Okay. You know, go on with yourself. Right. Okay. But yeah, I would say know thyself. You have to know yourself. And let me say this too. As a people who were brought to the Americas to work for other people, we have got to find a way, and I know it's going to be difficult. We have got to find a way to return to ourselves as creators. Right? Because basically what we do is we get a wonderful degree and then we go and we work for Google, right? Or we work for Walmart or whoever. We're creating for them, right? Meanwhile, the people in the community do not even know what we're creating.
Yes.
And when whatever we're creating is produced, our name is not on it. You see? So we've got to find a way to return to ourselves and become creators. We have got to produce for ourselves. We have got to distribute for ourselves. And then we have got to consume whatever we produce or distribute. This is what young people need to understand, that we also must become masters of our own fate, in that we must become business owners. We must become business owners, and we have to find a way to become business owners to the point where me as a business owner will be able to employ at least 50 other people. At least 50 other people, and not me being the sole, you know, person in my business. That may be fine for the beginning, right? But we've got to find a way to grow, because this is the way that our people will be able to sustain ourselves and stand with strength amongst other groups in the world.
With integrity.
With integrity, of course.
Yes. So yeah. Thus far, Dr. Franklin, you've been wonderful. You've been wonderful so far. What is your proudest achievement thus far in your life?
Look, I'm going to have to, let me say, first of all, my children. Mm-hmm. Because look, my children saved my life. I have one son who's 15 years older than the other son, okay? They saved my life. My youngest son was born with a colon disease, right? And what happened was, he was about 2, you know, was always sick, running to the hospital and all kinds of stuff. It was crazy, surgeries, all kind of crazy stuff. So, you know, and I didn't know anything, because, you know, and so he's sitting there one day, he was like 2, and he had a piece of meat, and he was just sucking on the meat. And Spirit said to me, he doesn't need the meat, he needs the nutrients. Mm. And so from that point on, I started to remove meat and meat byproducts from our diet. So then when my oldest son contracted asthma, and as we were progressing and moving away from the meat, he now no longer has asthma. Wow. When I was pregnant with my second son, was very, very ill. I didn't know it. My gallbladder, they said it had collapsed. I don't know, you know. Usually you have stones or whatever in there, right? But I didn't have no stones. It was just like, it was flat like that, right? I was just always in pain even through that pregnancy, and then afterwards. So what happened was, I learned, right, from taking care of my youngest son to take care of myself, right? And so although I don't have a gallbladder anymore, I'm still trying to take care of myself. Right. So when I tell you, you know, my children, yeah, my children, number one. And then number 2, being able to because let me say this, I'm really not even supposed to be alive, right? But anyway, so because of it, had I continued eating the way that I was eating, I wouldn't, because everything else would have started to break down, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say it like this. I'm trying to keep my thoughts straight now. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be where I am, right? Because my mother had 5 children. To this day, I'm the only college graduate that my mother has. Now you say, oh, that's no, because I know families, people have 10 children, all of them are medical doctors, lawyers, engineers, blah, 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 right? Okay, all right. I had to, like I said, I had to learn to read, right? Computation was like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like, so, statistics, okay. But just the fact that I was able to overcome, those obstacles, right? Of not being able to read well. And then learning to read, and then learning to love to read, because I also found myself in reading. Right? And what do I mean by that? I mean that when I started to read African history, I saw my childhood where aunts, when my mother could not, would not, or just generally did not do for me, they stepped in and were my mothers. African, not African American, African. I was like, oh snap, like, oh my God, I saw myself in African history. So it is, my education, right, is right behind my children, right? And not just the degrees, but the education that informed me as a person who has value. A person who has value, right? And who is, beneficial to people, right? My students, sometimes they would say, thanks for telling your story, because, you're telling us that no matter what the obstacles are, you can still make it, right? No matter what. Now I'm like, and I'm thankful for that. So yeah, so my children first, because they came to rescue me. Okay, but then the education that I received, even more so outside of college, because a lot of the stuff that I know, I would not learn in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would add that, and you know this, but going into the University of Chicago, I don't know how I would have survived without the cultural education that I got from you all. Mm-hmm. Right? That I got from you guys. By the time I got there, I was ready. I could withstand anything, albeit that experience was still very difficult and challenging, but I was able to navigate as a result of what you're saying, right? Have some cultural education, a cultural foundation. Mm-hmm. Floyd, thank you so much.
I so appreciate this. So I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Zoe, and I just want to start off by saying, going back to that 2015 summer, when me and Rodney had graduated from Northeastern, and we were in celebration, and you did something really powerful that kind of like just sums up what our ancestor Mary McLeod Bethune says, that the true worth of a race is measured, by the character of its woman. And what you did was you have this way about yourself. I come from a very matriarchal family, so I'm the youngest, no other brothers. I got 4 older sisters. They social service professionals, educators, Christian mama. So I felt like very comfortable in your presence, and did these things, that made me just know, like, yep, she's just like my sister. Yeah. I'm in the presence of someone powerful, someone special, and someone who's here to nurture you and to be an aid and assistance. And what you did was our guest previously, we had Robert Motley. He also graduated with us, and Rodney. So all three of us, she was like, just have y'all stand up for a moment. And what you did was you just heaped upon like affirmations, about recognizing this moment in time and memorializing it amongst everybody. And man, I was just like, Rod don't know it, but I was like, man, that's probably one of the sharpest knives in your drawer, brother. But who am I to say? But I thought, because you sharp. So I just wanted to ask you, like, can you talk a little bit about the importance of community colleges, right? As a way, but the importance of that in your experience being a department head, a department leader in African American studies. I know it's at Olive Harvey.
Yeah.
I don't know your exact title, so if you can share that with the world and just tell us a little bit about the importance of that role and that space that you're in.
Okay. I am the former chair of social science and Africana studies at Olive Harvey. Olive Harvey and just city colleges in general, they're so necessary because it gives people like a second chance, right, to get it right this time, right? To maybe even learn to construct a sentence, right? Or learn that it's okay to go to the tutor, right? Or that it's okay to go to the office hours. Because a lot of our people just can't, wrap their heads around, they don't have a frame of reference for that, right? Other people, you go over there if you have a problem, but for us, we have to have like a relationship, right? We have to have a relationship. But yeah, and with city colleges, it's a place for students to learn that it's okay to strive to get good grades, right? It's okay to try to overcome obstacles that have been there before. That it's okay that you're learning that you're bigger than all that crap. That it's okay, right? And so what I get to see at Olive Harvey is folks who say, okay, I'm gonna try to get a 3.0, or okay, I'm gonna move up to a 3.3, or oh, if I could just get a 3.6, and what that offers them, they get an opportunity to now become a member of an honor society, right? Or they begin to like think that what they thought was not possible is now possible, right? I can go into respiratory therapy and be successful. Oh, what, right? Or even I can get a certificate in Africana studies, what, right? And then we get to see students who graduate from Olive Harvey and go to UIC and graduate from UIC, or go to DePaul, graduate from DePaul, stay there, get a master's from DePaul. We have one student who went to the University of Louisville, in Kentucky, okay? And he just finished his undergrad. Well, as he was finishing undergrad, he started taking graduate level courses. So now he's in graduate school, University of Louisville. This is a graduate from Olive Harvey College, because what we try to do at Olive Harvey is to nurture the student. Look, you can do this, right? So you got to stop saying I ain't, can't, don't want, you can't do that, right? Because all of that mess is a prayer, right? So if you always don't, and you always saying don't, that's an affirmation that, right, you're right, you don't. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I think that's what we try to do you know, I think in general at city colleges. That's really what I think. Yeah.
I appreciate that because that's in alignment. So I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a graduate of Kennedy King
Oh,
College.
great.
Um, Similarly to when you said earlier, I went away to school at Northern, did not adapt well, flunked out, came back. So I had this non-traditional like matriculation of going through school and things. And I find city colleges, one, um, they're affordable in contrast with going to like a public university or private school.
That's true.
Then also, I find it very, it seems to work for individuals who may not have the maturity to be on their own and, you know, going away because, you know, a lot of kids will come back and, you know, things like that. So sometimes like right off, part of your plan could be, hey, let me save a little money. Let me go to city colleges. And then also, if you're an older adult, which I ended up becoming when I really took my education very seriously, the city colleges was like a safe proving ground, right? As you're just explaining, it was this safe space that I was nurtured and like hopes, dreams, and aspirations started to level up. And like folks were like, hey, you can do this. You can go to Northeastern. Matter of fact, we got this pathway that's gonna hook you up, you know? And I really did appreciate those moments. So I do like everything about city colleges. And then I would like to ask you also, like, just what are some, you know, I'm a Black professional, the kid Rod Allen, a Black professional, Queen Zoe's a Black professional. Like, what are some lessons learned about being a Black professional that you can impart to us in the world?
You know what? I think, let me say what Black professionals need to do. Black professionals, like I said, you know, to the students, you know, Black professional needs to learn to love themselves. Because a lot of times what happens with us is we buy into the ideologies that we learn about in our classes, but we don't really, you know, strive to like solidify our own, you know, personal kind of ethical ideology, right? Because before, you know, you start college and you're like, you know, rah, rah, rah. And then, you know, I don't want to hit a certain thing, but, you know, you hit on a certain topic. And then for the rest of your life, that becomes your mantra. Right. So if your ideology is not benefiting your people in the long run, Black professionals, you need to change your ideology.
Say word. That's what's happening. I so agree. I so agree. And I would say, like, for me, being a Black professional means that, and I don't, it may be controversial to some people, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It means not disconnecting myself from my community. Because oftentimes some of the messages that we receive from the external world, the non-Black world, the non-Black America, is that like, oh, okay, you're a Black professional, so like, you know, South Holland or Arlington High, like you can come on and, you know, and that's fine. But what about, how can my identity as a Black professional help inspire somebody from Mason and Fulton, from the West Side, from the South Side, right? It's hard to, if I'm not showing up, coming around, like letting them know, like, hey, no, I still want some Harold's chicken, and, you know, just create these like similarities and things like that. So for me, being a Black professional means like lean into my community more, don't distance myself, you know?
Yeah, you know what, because, oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so, yeah, because, you know, Carter G. Woodson said it took him 30 years to undo that damage, right? And then W.E.B. Du Bois, although he instituted this whole idea of the talented 10th, he came back several years later and denounced that crap. But it's really interesting that most people don't talk about the fact that he denounced it, because when he instituted it or implemented it, what happened was he saw that, you know, the educational system had took hold, because it's an initiation process. right? And so, you know, you leave your community and you go to University of Chicago, you go to Berkeley, you see what I'm saying? You're in that initiation process. And so if you're not careful, you will become something else, right? You're not going to become the best that you can be. And that's what happened when Black folks, you know, left the community. When he was talking, when W.E.B. Du Bois was talking about the talented 10th, they would then go back home and say, you know, you people are stupid. You're still speaking bad English and you're still, you know, deep frying catfish. You know, you you understand what I'm saying? And so basically, you know, what was supposed to happen is they were supposed to go away, right? Garner up all those tools, take them back home and lay them in front of the community and say, how do I use these tools, right, for the betterment, benefit, and uplift of our people, right? Because we can become, you know, these upwardly mobile professionals who have made it, quote unquote, and then sit back and say, oh, look at Ray, Pee Wee, Man, and them, they still standing on the corner, they ought to do something. But check this, you're not there for them to emulate. They're emulating what's there for them to emulate. And who knows what one might do when one gets hungry and ain't got no food. We don't.
What's up? Yes. So I'm going to pivot into some some esoteric things. So like what you know, what kind of music do you like, Zoe? Like what you been?
Oh, snap now.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Flizzo now. Did I cut you off? I'm sorry. What type of music I like and what?
Oh, now that was it. What you been listening to lately?
But you know, like I'll get to my music. But let me tell you, there are these two twins on YouTube, right? They listen to music that they say they haven't listened to before. They're like 21, 22 years old. And sometimes I'll go and watch them, right? Just being flabbergasted about music that they say they've not heard of before because they were raised in this really strict Christian home, right? I love that. You know, it just really, because you can see that they have a background in music, you know, at least from going to church, right? If you go to church, you got a background in music, whether you want to own it or not, right? Yes. You know, I'm a child of the 70s. So my favorite group of all time is Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Hey!
We can't go wrong with Earth, Wind, and
Fire. Serpentine Fire. When you're talking about that Kundalini energy, you talking about DNA strand. What? You know what I mean? Like Maurice White. Where was Maurice White from?
Chicago, South Side.
Double check, okay? Yes. Just, you know, ahead. People still haven't caught up with Maurice to this day, and he's made his transition. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, Maurice White, I love that. Oh, John Coltrane, you know, Sun Ra. Even Kool in the Gang. Y'all don't know nothing about the Summer Madness, the original one. You know about Will Smith, but the first, you don't know nothing about that Kool in the Gang. Okay.
I know something about it, Queen.
Okay. You know, there's some hip hop that I like. Now, my oldest son, he used to like, Mom, I can't believe, like, he hated Tupac, right? But I took from Tupac the good stuff from Tupac. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so, you know, I love Tupac. And, you know, and interestingly, just as Roger Troutman and Zapp were becoming successful, they did a gig outside of my hometown. I'm from Champaign. Well, I'm actually from Mississippi, but raised in Champaign. There's a place called Rantoul, and they were actually there. And I actually got the opportunity to like go on stage and sing with them one time with Zapp. So love Zapp. Love their music. Anita Baker. Love Anita Baker. I like some Alicia Keys. I like some Beyonce. I sort of love anything Fantasia does. Now my students don't like Fantasia. Say she else, but they don't understand. But I love it. And you know, my girl, I got two of them. No, three. Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, and Jill Scott.
Okay.
Okay. I love you. So don't ask me about no music now. I love Kendrick the Family Soul. You know Kendrick the Family Soul?
Yes.
Oh, wait. And I love
far away from here.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I'm saying. I love Kim.
Oh, second week in a row we had a guest mention Kim.
Yeah.
Kim is
last week's guest mentioned Kim.
Kim is
He loves Kim.
Kim, and I'll tell you who else I like too. Maxwell. Like Maxwell. I love BBD, right? Biv DeVoe. Johnny, my boy Johnny. What's his name? Johnny Gill. You know, and I'm gonna go over here. I was gonna say New Edition, but I have to name them all. I like Ralph. And my boy, you know, what's his name? Married to Whitney. I like him too. Bobby Brown. I love Bobby Brown. Let's see who else. Back in the day, I loved Ashford and Simpson.
Oh yeah.
Ashford and Simpson.
Yeah.
Let's see who else. You know, like the Spinners.
Yeah.
They win.
All them
Felipe win.
Huh?
Felipe win.
Felipe. Stop.
I was a music major in high school. I mean, and you know, we had these Friday fish fries at my mother's house.
Okay.
That stuff.
Right. I'm trying to think, because and let me go here. Mahalia Jackson.
Oh, Chicago. South Shore.
Tommy, what was the other, the pianist, Thomas Dorsey, Chicago, right? Thomas Dorsey, you know, with gospel too, there was a mass choir called the Mississippi Mass Choir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was, what's the name of the group that sang Always and Forever?
P-Wave.
Hey, that's, look, let me tell you.
That's right there. That's a playlist shaking up right there.
She took us deep. He took us really deep.
Do you listen to house music?
You know, I'm not big on the house, you know, and I know that's a Chicago creation.
Yes.
You know, I know I've heard some of it, you know, and I've had students who love it, right? But I tell you what I do like, stepping. I'm not a stepper, right? Because I can't get the rhythm of the stroke, if you know what I mean. Oh, who was that? That was yes, that was my group too. Oh, and the Eyes Libra. Oh, Rick James. James. Rick.
Yes.
Rick. Oh, Prince. Michael Jackson.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you who else I liked. Michael Jackson's sister, the oldest one, Rebe.
Centipede.
She made Centipede.
Right? That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And I just heard it not too long ago. I was like, that was a great song.
You know, that's what's happening. You definitely
She took us deep, didn't she?
It's just oozing. Soul is just oozing from those artists you just named, and it's oozing from you. And
Thank you.
So what, you know, now I'm just going, you know, run through some more current things. You know, what's your take on, you know, our recent election? It seems like we have something to talk about, so to speak, you know? Take on things.
Here's my take. We do not have, what they call it, a dog in that fight. Is that what they say?
A horse in the race.
A horse in the race. See now, if we jump in there, like too many of us, you know, okay, I won't say that. I won't say house Negroes. Okay, because see, we should not
saying house Negroes.
without saying how.
It's okay.
It's a teachable moment. Yeah,
we love it.
Yeah, honestly, we should not be jumping in there. We should you know, without going too far, we need to be pulling back. And I'm going to say it like this. We need to be supporting people who are coming forward, who are having their contracts with Black folks, if you understand what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? We got to support these people, because the media, and this is what I said not too long ago, that the media tells us what to think, when to think it, and how to speak it, right? And so if you begin to talk outside of the confines of the media, you become something else, what they call a conspiracy theory that was created by the CIA so that, you know, people would only listen to what they want you to listen to, right? But anyway, yeah, so we need to strategize for ourselves, because, you know, I was reading, I think it was Claude Anderson, and I left the book in the other room, but you know what? I'm sorry. Let me go get it.
This is great, great, great.
Yes, sir.
Oh, this is terrific. You know, she'll really get serious about it. Yeah.
Huh?
I was just telling Fliz how passionate you are about these matters.
Oh, I'm too passionate. I'm you know, because see the reason why we're dying in the streets, right, is because we are in a weakened state. You know, power recognizes what? Power. It respects power, right? This is why, you know, these different countries don't, like, you know, you'll never see Russia, hopefully, or the United States shoot at one another, because they know, right, the power that each of them have. And so we shoot at one another, we're going to annihilate one another.
Yes,
right?
We know, yeah, we can do damage to one another.
We can do damage to one another. So they, you know, power respects power. So Claude Anderson is talking about this doctrine of unequal exchange, right? And so just, you know, bear with me, because he's saying that the doctrine of unequal exchange is the practice of unbalanced socioeconomic trade in which weaker parties foolishly trade or are tricked into trading their valuable goods, services, or properties for money or items of far less value than what the weaker party is trading. Frequently, the weaker exploited parties receive diminished monetary value or only intangible or symbolic benefits.
So that's so heck of a powerful, because as you're saying this, I'm thinking almost any kind of business transaction I do with like someone who's non-Black or non-people, person of color, because I think of wage inequality. I think of like gender inequality. I think of all of these things that are really rooted in the principles that you just put forth.
Right. And as long as that policy is being perpetuated, right? Well, let me just say it like this. Until we begin to see ourselves as a people, and you know, and the system knows that we are people. That's why they keep us, it works to keep us divided, right? Until we see ourselves as a people and begin to operate for our own best interest and that which will benefit us, we will always be seen as a weakling, and there will always be somebody to put their knee on our neck or to, you know, challenge us when we're jogging or while we are in our bed, right? They'll, you know. So we have got to see ourselves as that. That's why I'm saying, you know, let's not get caught up in the Democratic, in the Democrat or the Republican. Like I told a family member, I said, I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, I'm Black, right? And you know, some people say B1, right? Black first, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at. We need to allow them to do what they do, right? Meanwhile, we come back, we collect ourselves, and then we challenge everybody, right? Whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, because we have a long history of neither of them ever doing anything that's solely going to benefit Black people, right? You go back to 65, what did Johnson tell King? Now, Martin, you know, I can't just write no bill just for no Negroes. And poor Martin, I fear that I'm leading my people into a burning house. Well, doggone it, the house is burning.
Good stuff. That's real. Thank you. I definitely want to say cooperative economics. If y'all were listening, that's what we need to focus on. You know?
Cooperative economics. And you know what? And cooperatize that economics so we can do what Claude Anderson said, you either rent you a politician or you buy one.
There you go.
So can I intervene for a second? Fliz, I just want to intervene for a second because something just hit me as you and Dr. Franklin were talking. We just witnessed the fact that there are no less than 70 million people in the United States of America who are either racist, okay with racism, or okay with supporting a racist, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We just witnessed that by way of the vote, right? Do you think that in our lifetime, we will see a time when racism does not exist? Dr. Franklin?
He dropped heavy, did he, man? Like, clearly, we could talk forever, but please, the floor is yours.
Okay, just briefly. Not a chance. Because this country, racism is in the fabric. You know, like racism was there before the fabric of the country, right? So it's not only the foundation, it is woven into, you know what I mean? It's everywhere. It's yeah, I don't even know how to, yeah, it's there. Racism, right, is the disease, right, that too many people have, right? Because a lot of us are helping to perpetuate racism. When we oppress our own people for the benefit of the system, we're perpetuating racism, right? We're the minions of racism, right? So we would actually have to, in order to quote unquote get rid of racism, you have got to get rid of, oh boy, the capitalist structure. You know, and some of us can't even fathom that happening because it may seem to be a bit too controversial.
I mean, absolutely, because you heard wind in Florida when socialism got attached to the Democratic candidates. Like, people get scared when they hear of like anything different than capitalism, different than like the system that they operate in now, which is the same system that allows racism to flourish. You know, I tell my daughter, racism is the most valuable import, right? It was imported into this country, you know what I'm saying? And like, you know, it's not oil, it's not gold, it's racism, because under those conditions, one group of people get to flourish at the expense of another group of people, you know?
Right. Right, and they used it, you know, to decimate the Native American population, right? They used it in a myriad of different ways to justify the, you know, enslavement and dehumanization of our people, right? So yeah, yeah, it's difficult. I was reading somewhere, I can't remember now, but where, like, you know, white people have a difficult time of being equal to Black people because they feel like, you know, they must be here and then Black people must be here. They must feel as though they are quote unquote superior to Black people, or at least better than Black people, right? Because supposedly, you know, Black people are this gauge that measures everybody else's success.
Mm.
So if you see, you know, a Black homeless, you know, person, right, and you're a white person or any other person, you know, that's not Black, right, well, at least you're not that, right?
Good stuff.
It's the same thing that they told poor white people, by the way.
Which is the same thing they told poor white people, by the way. And so poor white people, you know, I can't say, well, anyway, poor white people,
Yes.
right? Especially like there was a large group of Irish in particular, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
buck up, boy, at least you're not a Negro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Thus, the birth of white privilege.
Yes.
Absolutely. So another thing that, you know, we'll always remember this time is because of the COVID pandemic, the pandemic. So, you know, Zoe, how has COVID, you know, how's it affected you, your family? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, you know, talk about that a little bit.
I'll try to be brief. Okay, so work at Olive Harvey. So I think it was like the 15th of March. It was like right around midterm. It was strange. We're going on pause. I mean, I was like, what? So I'm walking out of my classroom and I tell my students, I said, this is a virus. You treat it like any other virus. You stay within arm's distance, you take you some vitamin C, you take you some vitamin D3, you drink a lot of water, you make sure that you're exercising, and you know, just if somebody's sick, you just stay the heck away from me. And then this thing just snowballed very quickly. So COVID-19. Okay. You got me, ancestors, you got me. COVID-19, I'm not saying it's not real, but COVID-19 is a planned endeavor to ensure that the masses of people across the planet are afraid enough to do whatever they're intending to employ. Okay? If you say, I'm not going out of my house until they create a vaccine, that's some fear for your tail. I'm not going back to work until they create a vaccine. That's some fear for your tail. And what's that's telling you? Those are going to be the first people in line to take a vaccine that has not been proven. And the poor guinea pigs that they've been using this stuff on, people have been coming down with all kinds of back ailments and all kinds of crazy stuff that's not necessarily being talked about, you know, on, you know, the corporate media, you know. There are times when I have to keep talking to myself to tell me, you're not going to allow this thing to control you. But very honestly, because I'm tethered to this computer, you know, with my classes and stuff like that, a couple of days might go past before I go outside or whatever. Right? The other day, I was like, oh, the sun is out. So I just went and I just stood in my doorway just to get some sunshine. There are people who are afraid to do that because they think that COVID is just hanging in the air. And I'm saying, but these people have been dumping, what do they, chemtrails. These people have been dumping chemtrails on you for decades now. And we just go out, oh, basking in the sunshine. But now COVID, we think it's just hovering just to get dumped on us, right? We're in a sad situation. You know, our language is being changed, right? The new normal, right? you know, we're being further divided amongst ourselves, right? You're not supposed to visit somebody over 65, especially if they have pre-existing conditions, because they might have it and you might get it, so you stay away from them. Oh, no, no, no. Now the teenagers have it. Now you got to stay away from the teenagers. Oh, the babies are getting, stay away from the babies, right? The agenda is, you know, my question, you know, what is the agenda? You want us all vaccines? Do you want to, you know, some people talk about being vaccinated and getting nanotechnology, right, implanted in the body, right? Or the fact that you're required to, quote unquote, social, you know, see the new language, social distance, right? Within 6 feet. Some people saying, oh, that's so, you know, they can, you know, digitally, facially recognize you or something, right? If you're crowding amongst yourselves, they can't see your face, or they can't determine, you know, that it's just one person, you know, and all like that. I think it's really interesting too, that Bill Gates sounds as though now he's become some scientist, right? Or you know, something. I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't even graduate from college, Bill. And now you, what? Right? And people are really listening to Bill Gates as though he's like Jesus' second coming after Barack Obama. Right? We need to, you know, listen, you know, because we're not really listening. We're just acting like robots, right? Be afraid, do what we tell you to do, right? Go out and buy all the toilet paper. I didn't understand that. But you know, okay, did I say too much? Okay.
No, not at all. It was definitely crazy, and it still is for
Crazy.
people. So you know, what does the future hold for Zoe? Like in 5 years, I mean, you've done so much, and you still doing, you rocking. Like, we gonna see you at the golf course in 5 years, or you probably already doing it now, or like you. I mean, what does the future hold for you? Like, what would you like to see yourself doing and be like in 5 years or something?
You know what? I would really like to be able to, this is crazy, right? I would like to be able to build a tiny house somewhere in Africa. I don't care if it's on the beach or on the bank of a river, right? You know, have a room for my books and music. Um, and if I can interact with young people, you know, that would really be great. You know, and that, you know, just, yeah, that right there, right? If somebody wanted me to be like a head mistress or something of a school, I wouldn't mind doing that. You know, but yeah, I think, you know, I just like to be able to do that. Or if I can't leave the country, my family does have some land down in Mississippi. You know, I can, you know, build my tiny house down there and grow my veggies.
It's beautiful state. I got my two youngest kids are down there in Brookhaven. Beautiful state.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh, that's what's up. So I really literally have just one last question, and it's, have you given much thought as to like what your you know, like how do you want to be remembered? Like, what's your legacy? Like,
Mm.
how am, like, I remember you fine. I know Rodney had fine, but like, what is this? Because you answered the question, like, who am I, right? Like, that's really the important thing. So, like, what? How would you like to be remembered by others? You know, or how would you like to be known by others?
You know, when I was growing up, I felt like I was in pain all the time, and I used to always like have this little prayer. You know, I was a true Christian, and I'd be like, you know, Lord, if I could just help somebody, right? If I could just help somebody, right? And even now, like, you know, if like, even like for the two of you, or, you know, a student come back and, oh, you know, Dr. Franklin, I did what you told me to do, and I da 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 da, and I'm, you know, my first thought is, you did? And then I'm, oh, that's it. Because, and the other thing is, see, like, I don't have grandchildren, right? And so it's like, how do you, live, eternally, right? So if you don't have grandchildren, somebody has to call your name, right? And so I think I want to be remembered as somebody who, was of use to the community, right? Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, everybody. And let's give it up for Dr. Zoe.
Oh, y'all are the bomb.
Yes.
Y'all are amazing.
So one of the more admirable things about you, Zoe, that I've never told you, that I find to be very important and far too rare among older adults, is your desire to remain relevant and empower young people. Like, you like to relate to young people. You like to know what's going on. What are you listening to? What's going on in the neighborhood? What vernacular is changing?
Yeah.
And you've always demonstrated your interest in that. Even if you said on the board of directors with our youth program, it was like, I just felt this tremendous level of support and accountability. I did. And that helped us because, as you know, a lot of those young people are professional all around the country now.
Yeah.
So we have this last section. It's a crowd favorite.
Oh boy.
Right? And as you were kind of talking about your travels and some of the countries that you've been to, I know that one of your favorite countries is Jamaica, but you didn't mention it, right?
I didn't even mention Jamaica.
But that's okay, because I don't think you smoke. I've never known you to smoke or drink or anything like that. At least I've never seen it. But the name of our last segment is called Bring Some Weed. I got a story to tell. And I don't even smoke.
Right. Well,
so in this section, we like to afford our guests an opportunity to tell a story of your choice, good, bad, or indifferent, educational, a tearjerker, whatever it is, we don't care. You have the freedom to tell any story that you want to, that you think could be thought-provoking and or informative to our audience.
Okay. I didn't think I would be able to come up with anything, but I was fortunate to meet Baba Jake Carruthers. Yes. Who was about my height, by the way. Just a towering figure, though,
Right.
And, I told him, I said, well, first, because he met us at Chicago State. I was an older student, and we were the radical, folks on campus. We were the activists. And so he would call our group the Mafia, all right? And so I told him, I said, I'm going to Berkeley. And he said, go to educate yourself and not educate anybody else. He said, go and get the paper. I said, okay. So, I mean, I have, just another one, some people might be upset with this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Another one is Dr. Asante. Again, I was an undergrad and we were taking a group of students from Chicago State to the Job Conference. And we had been talking back and forth to the administrative assistant. And this particular time I called, Dr. Asante answered the phone. And so, he helped me. And so we go to the conference And he had never seen me before, right? So he's walking down the hall towards me, I'm walking towards him, and he said, Zoe Franklin? And I said, oh, Dr. Asante. I was like, he just, and so Dr. Asante, you know, wrote one of my letters of recommendation for Berkeley, right? Because he saw, you know, my activism at that time. So I've had some really wonderful experiences with people. You know, Conrad Worrill called me a throwback from the 60s.
Yes.
You know, so maybe we can, anyway, so we ain't gonna have no conversation on Conrad. But but yeah, so you got 3 in 1. So it's
Yes.
all.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And just so you know, part of the reason why we wanted you to be on this platform is because we want to celebrate you and express our sincere appreciation for those moments that have been special to us, you know, throughout our time knowing you, right? And so we just wanted the world to see that, you know, we have some ill Chicagoans who are intellectuals, and they're a little bit radical, and they're multi-talented. Okay?
A little bit country, a little bit soul,
a little bit rock and roll. Right?
Little Richard, Chuck Berry. Okay.
Yes. And so we just wanted to thank you. Floyd, you have anything you want to say?
Man, I want to say it's a pleasure to have the one and only Queen, Zoe Franklin, just having a conversation with you, listening to you just speak about life, you know, and just like getting that humble perspective, you know. It's always a treat. It's always a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for inviting me to come out, whether I was a panelist at something that you were doing, you know. These were all exciting times that just helped shape me. So thank you for being a conduit, you know, to really like stoking the fires intellectually and otherwise for myself.
Look,
Okay.
you know what, Flizzo, Kid Rod, you have warmed my heart, right? Because like, you know what, when I talked to Rodney, Flizzo, you don't know this, when I talked to Rodney, he's like, we want to have you on the show. I told Rodney, I said, look, Rodney, even if you don't have me on the show, just from the standpoint of the fact that you thought about it means a lot to me, right? Because I know that I'm an unusual intellectual, right? Because I've had students like, you go to Dr. Franklin, you know, to get the real deal. And then you go over here to this professor right here, and they'll teach you all of the academic language. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so I'm really, I'm honored, you know, like I said, when we started the show, I'm really honored that, you know, that, yeah, that you thought enough of me to have me on your show. And it means more than you know, okay? And don't y'all be getting me on no international platform and have somebody from England. Well, we want to have you, Dr. Franklin.
There's a strong possibility. We need to warn you, there's a strong possibility. And so this concludes another episode of Chicago ILLectuals podcast. I am the Kid Rod Allen for Young Flizzle and Dr. Zoe Franklin. Zoe Franklin.
Yeah. That's okay. Some people call me Joey too. It's all right. I have a lot of names.
Peace. All right, take care.
Peace, love, soul.